Hello and welcome to the B-Side Co podcast. This is the podcast where we dive deep into the flip side of sales, leadership, growth, change, and even a little spirituality. So here we're exploring books, conversations, dialogues, lessons, insights that happen behind the scenes here at B-Side Co. And so whether you're looking to grow personally, professionally, or are simply curious about what is happening here, you have come to the right place. So let's flip the script and see what's really going on at the B-Side. Hello and welcome to the B-Side Co podcast. This is the podcast where we dive deep into the flip side of sales, leadership, growth, change, and even a little spirituality. So here we're exploring books, conversations, dialogues, lessons, insights that happen behind the scenes here at B-Side Co. And so whether you're looking to grow personally, professionally, or are simply curious about what is happening here, you have come to the right place. So let's flip the script and see what's really going on at the B-Side. Hey, and welcome back to another book review. Today I'm going to be reviewing a book in the Sullivan Hardy series called 10x is easier than 2x. So I'll just tell you, man, this was a breath of fresh air. I knew reading the title that there was going to be some things that made sense to me right off the gate, and that there were also going to be some things that challenged me, because this is pure strategy. It's pure approach. So I'll kick it off into the book, and then I'll kind of give you my context. But in the introduction of the book, Dan Sullivan and Benjamin Hardy write that 10x is the opposite of what you've been told. Now, I don't know that anyone ever told me what 10x was. Having run my real estate business and been a team leader, been a market center team leader for a brokerage, having the experience that I've had in sales and in business over the last 10, 11 years, I don't think anyone ever told me like, hey, Meg, you should probably go 10x. Now, I do remember other terminology potentially in the beginning of my career when I was studying kind of the elites or the megas of my industry. I remember specifically one person saying, hey, if you're going to build a business, you might as well from the start build a 7-lane highway. And what he meant by that was that it's easier to build a 7-lane highway that you can expand into over time versus a 2-lane highway that you have to have like a complete rehaul and reconstruction of the entire system just in order to grow. So when I saw this book, 10x is easier than 2x, I had heard about it through a few different people over the last couple years. Didn't think too much of it, but as we started looking at books to dive into, it became clear that this was going to be a powerful book to look into. So I don't know what you've been told about 10x, but Sullivan and Hardy say it's the opposite of what you've been told. My take on the introduction is simply that the work that it takes to double your business or to double your income, to double your output, so to speak, that's a lot of work. Most of the time, in order to double your output, you just have to double your work. You have to double your effort. So in a lot of ways, I think people are thinking potentially that if I'm going to go 10x, then that means I have to work 10x as hard and I need to put in 10x the hours. By the way, that's like almost impossible depending on how many hours you're putting into your work. I bet it's pretty close to impossible to put 10 times more hours into it. So just from the get, they're very clear. 10x isn't about any specific outcome, that this book isn't about just getting 10x the results. It is about creating a operating system that you function within that creates ease and productivity, and that you have what they refer to as perceptual filters, so that you are saying no to everything unless it's a hell yes, which if you listen to my book review on The Gap and the Gain, we talk a little bit about how everything's a no unless it's a hell yes. It does require, though, that you're sure what your success criteria is, that you're sure what a 10x life, a 10x business would really look like for you. And yeah, that, maybe you've seen other, business people or entrepreneurs or, inspirational speakers talk about going 10x. The difference with Sullivan and Hardy's approach is that this isn't about quantity. It's about quality. It's about enjoyment and ease and abundance and wealth, not just grinding and working harder. So this is a very qualitative, internal kind of invitation. If you're going to read this book or if you're going to listen to the rest of this book review, it is definitely about developing mastery in certain areas, expanding your vision and your standards, simplifying even your strategy and your focus, and that 10x is the vehicle with which you'll be able to achieve what you want to achieve and transform in your life. Now, before we go into the first part of the book, I want to lay out 4 fundamental freedoms that Dan Sullivan talks about. He says that there's 4 basic freedoms that people who want to live a 10x kind of life are looking for. The first freedom is freedom of time. They don't want to be limited by time. They don't want to have anyone else own their time or tell them what to do with their time. The second kind of freedom is the freedom of money. It's the ability to earn more, to pay your people more, to be able to do more, and to not be hindered by not having money. The third type of freedom he refers to is freedom of relationship. And I really love this one because in the book, he does dive deep into how our relationships are oftentimes limited by our thinking and by what we believe we need or want in our life. And so freedom of relationship is really just about continually expanding our relationships, not just in quantity again, but in quality. And then finally, the fourth freedom is freedom of purpose. And as someone who considers myself to be a purpose-driven person, I can definitely just accept that is a very important part of my life. I believe it is for most people who are seeking to better themselves. If you're someone listening to this podcast, if you're someone who's reading these kinds of books or picking up this book later down the road or now, you're probably someone who has a purpose, right? And the freedom of purpose really is about being able to move through kind of life in a non-linear kind of way. I call these quantum jumps, where you're not just incrementally growing or changing, but you have drastic change in a short period of time because you're focused on your purpose, you're delivering on your purpose, and you're living in a reality that is centered around your purpose. So that's the introduction. I'm going to jump into part 1 here, and I'm looking forward to sharing with you. All right, so welcome to our talk on part 1 of 10x is easier than 2x. We're going to look at chapter 1 together. It is titled The Surprising Simplicity of 10x Growth. Without reading anything to you from the book, because if this intrigues you, I suggest and encourage you go read it. The simplicity of the 10x principles that Sullivan and Hardy talk about is first and foremost about a decision. It's the simplicity of making a decision that you want to obtain 2x growth, but that the easiest way to do that is to shoot for 10x growth. That as you expand your vision, as you expand your process, your systems, your creativity, you will inevitably hit 2x growth, but you're starting with a vision of 10x. So that's truly the simplicity of the choice that needs to be made and that they encourage you to make. And by the way, just as a reminder, if you aren't familiar with Dan Sullivan and Dr. Benjamin Hardy, Dan Sullivan is a coach for entrepreneurs. He's been a coach for decades. And Dr. Benjamin Hardy is a psychologist who happened to sit in some of Dan's courses and classes and coaching sessions and was inspired to put some of Dan Sullivan's principles that he taught into a book form for the public. So that's how we got this book, 10x is easier than 2x. And all of the studies come from reading and, from studying the actual lives and businesses of highly successful people. So, by the way, when I say success and when Dan Sullivan and Benjamin Hardy say success, they are talking about your definition of success. You know, the income you're making, the happiness you have, the relationships you have, all of those freedoms that we just talked about. So in chapter 1, this simplicity of going 10x, there's a couple questions that he presents to help you create your framework. And the first question that he asks is, how are you going to grow? Because if you want to grow 2x, there are infinite ways to grow. But if you want to grow 10x, there's likely only a few ways to make that happen. And so really just sticking with this vision, this experience, this energy of looking into your future and asking yourself, who do I want to be? What do I want to have done? What does my business look like? All of those things, it starts with that 10x vision. So there's only a few ways to get to 10x. Now, in chapter 1, he presents the 80-20 principle. Many people are familiar with the 80-20 principle, but I don't want to take it for granted. You know, the 80-20 principle, oftentimes referred to as the Pareto principle, states that 80% of your results are going to come from 20% of your activities. And the opposite is true as well, that 80% of your activities are only leading to 20% of your results. So the simplicity of being someone who's committed to 10xing is that you live in your 20% more often, that you're assessing on the regular, what is my 20%? How do I stay in it, live in it, breathe in it, and adjust as needed to stay in my 20% as time goes on? So the 10x versus 2x framework is, if you're looking to go 10x, then you're probably going to keep 80% of your existing life, just the way it is, and probably add in 20% new, and you'll grow and things will change. That will be a 2x type of approach. But a 10x kind of approach, he says, is a complete transformation. It's not, as he says, rearranging the furniture. This is doing a total overhaul of the space. And that to go 10x, you will have to add 80% new into your life, which means you get rid or let go of 80% of the way you used to do things, and only keep 20% of the way you used to do things and add in that 80%. So because 10x is qualitative, this isn't just about changing metrics or behaviors. It's really about creating something different and better. And in this chapter, they spend a lot of time talking about what it means to be in a flow state. The flow state, science and research for those who experience flow says there's really 3 specific things that create a flow state or activate a flow state. One is clear and specific goals. What is the specific, right? Not just like I want to make more or I want to pay off debt. What is the specific goal? Number 2 is immediate feedback. Not the next day, the next week. It's literally in the moment. Can you see and sense and note what the feedback is as you're taking action? And then number 3 is creating for yourself a challenge that is just above and outside your current skill level. It's not so far away that you don't take action on it, but it's not so within your skill level that you do it by default or kind of automatically. This is a challenge that you are stepping into. So activating a flow state, clear and specific goals, immediate feedback, and challenge, and have a challenge that's just above and outside your current skill level. So the question around, the simplicity is the choice, the 80-20 rule, leaving 80% of your old life behind, adding 80% new into your life, and getting into a flow state through clear and specific goals, getting immediate feedback, and creating just enough challenge for yourself. Now, because Benjamin Hardy is who he is, he's always sharing these psychological terms that professionals use. And something he introduced in chapter 1 was a term called pathways thinking. And pathways thinking states that highly hopeful people continually adjust their pathway until they ultimately find and create a way to their goal, even in the direst of circumstances. I just love this so much, that those people who are committed to their goal and maybe even find circumstances to be dire from time to time, they just keep adjusting their path until they find a way, and they don't give up or slow down or stop. They're just constantly adjusting the path. All right, chapter 2 is a chapter called 10x, the quality of everything you do. The principles of going 10x is kind of the fundamental part of this first part of the book. And because this is about quality, not quantity, they spend quite a bit of time talking about what that means. So many people are metrics people. I'm a metrics person. I like knowing my numbers. I like being aware and clear of, am I making progress around the metrics that I said mattered? But as you grow, you recognize that more is not always better, and that quality does matter. Taking your time and being proud of what you do, being able to exercise your creativity, your professionalism, your expertise, right? Your mastery, like those things matter. That when you live in your zone of genius, when you live in your mastery, everyone else around you benefits from that. So this isn't about quantity. This is about quality. The question here is about our standards, and Sullivan and Hardy do a great job kind of provoking thought around what are your standards? Who are you in a new 10x version of yourself, right? So your standards are not what you say they are what you accept. And therefore, if you're looking at going 10x from where you are now, then your standards are going to have to raise 10x. And that means you may have to say no, going back to the 80-20 rule, to 80% of the standards that you used to have and only keep 20% of them and add 80% new standards. Now, there is a saying, how you do anything is how you do everything. So this isn't just about business or your career. This is also about your life. I'm going to quote the book here. He says that you simplify your focus by continually letting go of everything that doesn't meet your 10x filter. So part of this process is determining what your 10x filter is. Who are you? What do you accept? What is the new 10x version of yourself? And what are those standards that you run everything through? Now, people who are looking to do this kind of thing must choose freedom over security. I might have to repeat that. That if you're looking to 10x, you can't hold tight and play safe. You have to choose freedom. You have to choose going beyond the status quo. You have to choose rising above the expectations of others and really allowing yourself to rise to the 10x occasion. So the top quality that people who go 10x possess, according to the authors, is the ability to rapidly accept a new identity. It's powerful. Identity, they talk about, is two things. One, it's the story and narrative that you have for yourself. And two, it's the standards and commitments you hold for yourself. So being able to accept a new identity requires a new story and new standards. Now, this is the part of the book that Hardy pulls on Sullivan's coaching, and he introduces the 4 C's of how to evolve your identity. So this is really powerful. If you take the time to put pen to paper around some of this, I think you'll really be proud that you did and glad that you did. The 4 C's of evolving your identity are: 1, commitment. It's the commitment to your new identity. 2, it's courage. It's the courage to take new actions, do new things, say no. 3, it's capability. It is your ability to do and perform at the level that you are looking to do and perform. And 4, it is confidence, that you evolve your identity by creating new confidence in yourself, practicing new confidence in yourself. Now, one of those other psychological terms that gets introduced is called loss aversion. And there's a lot of people who experience loss aversion. This is the act of continuing to invest in something that's unprofitable simply because you've already invested in it in the past. And this is something that keeps people from evolving their identities. You can't 10x yourself. You can't implement the 4 C's if you have this loss aversion where you're holding on to things just because you've already invested in them, even though there's really no signs that they're going to be profitable in the future. The other part of loss aversion is the overvaluing of something that you own simply because it's yours. And then finally, continuing to do something you've previously done in order to be viewed by yourself or others as consistent, right? That even though it's not working for you really, and you're not getting benefits from it, and the outlook is bleak, you keep doing it simply because you want to be seen as someone who's consistent. It's admirable in some ways, but it doesn't allow you to actually live life on your terms in the long run. I really like chapter 2. I think he just hits on so many ways of implementing this new mindset of 10X. He said to make something a new standard, you stop saying yes to the 80%. That was your 2X identity. You embrace rejection and learning at the new standard until you reach a place of capability and confidence in the new standard. And this is about getting really good at what you do. It's about choosing the quality and choosing the mastery even over the quantity. Now, I'm going to give a shout out to a couple other authors who I have read and Sullivan and Hardy give recommendations to. One is Seth Godin. The other is James Clear. James Clear wrote in his book, Atomic Habits, the difference between good and great is often an extra round of revision. Take the time to get it right. Revise it one extra time. One thing I pose to anyone who's looking at doing this exercise of creating a new identity for yourself, raising the bar, creating a 10X life for yourself, is to take a moment to ask yourself, am I living exponentially or am I living linearly? It's a hard word to say. Ask yourself, am I focused on just effort and volume, right? Which is the linear type of living and working, or am I creating something qualitatively different and better than anything else out there? That is exponential living. All right, to wrap up part 1 of the book about the 10X principles, chapter 3 is called 10X Embraces Abundance and Rejects Scarcity. You know, this is a little bit of a hard conversation to have just solo into the microphone, if I'm going to be honest, because it, in a sense, requires a mirror, right? To be able to really talk about the difference between an abundance mindset and a scarcity mindset. Now, Sullivan and Hardy would describe this as the difference between someone who is needing things and those who are wanting things. People who feel like they need are potentially competing for scarce resources, that they feel like they need an opportunity and there's only so many opportunities out there, so therefore they need to hold tight to whatever they can find in order to be able to survive and to maybe even, make it another day. But those who want, right, those who embrace abundance, those are the people who are continually expanding. Those are people who live in a little bit of more of a cooperation with others and with nature. They choose to engage with other abundance-minded individuals and to create new things. And, something that I have found over the course of my life is that there's a proverb I kind of took on and a mantra that I've held on to that's helped me quite a bit in my life. And it is, bless that with which you want, right? So bless what you want. So if I want something, then I should always feel gratitude for that. I should always appreciate the fact that someone else has that, because that means it can also be mine. It is not limited. That resource isn't limited. And if you look at the earth and you look at the resources, especially in the United States, it's true, right? That there's this kind of mentality of we can keep creating more. Now, more is not always better. And there's this fine line, and I think Sullivan does a great job of describing the difference between these things. But this isn't just about, I want and abundance and wanting and wanting and wanting, and I can never get enough. No, it's about learning how to stop justifying that you do want things, that you do want security in the bank account, that you do want to own several homes, that you do want to be able to travel, that you do want to be able to enjoy certain experiences. And so entrepreneurs who operate out of need don't accomplish as much as those who operate out of want. If you feel like you need to make a buck, then you're going to go find a buck, but that's all you're going to find, right? And if you operate out of want, then you're probably going to find yourself stepping into pretty creative spaces and pretty abundant spaces. Now, this is something that you have to try and practice. That's why I said it's very hard to talk about it. It's more felt than it is spoken. But I want to point out a couple of things about wealth in general. Sullivan writes, wanting is about abundance and creation. Okay? Creativity, that's even that word brings me so much joy and it brings me so much life. Creativity is not a scarce resource. It takes nothing away from anyone else. When you are creative, it takes nothing away from anyone else. So that's number one. Wanting is about abundance and creation. Number two, wanting requires no justification. When you want something, you don't need to justify that to anyone else. You wanting something doesn't require you create a frame of reference or a reasoning or a logic to anyone else. You can actually just want something for the sake of wanting it. And in fact, if you're going to go 10x and live a life that you are proud of, that you are uniquely suited to live, you can't pay heed. This is Sullivan's words. You can't pay heed to the scarcity mongers. It's an important conversation for entrepreneurs today, to want what you want and to be not just okay with that, but to be proud of that, to recognize that it takes courage to want things. It takes courage to be committed to living a life that is beyond need. And most of the population lives a life around need. And their frame of reference and their thinking and their worldview is around need. But if we really allow ourselves to think about that concept of creativity and how money is getting made every day, right? And there are new products and new services, and it doesn't stop. Any one person's efforts or any one company's efforts does not stop anyone else from doing what they dream of doing. So now this is the chapter where we talk about what it means to be wealthy and abundant, and that it's not just about money. Money is a part of this overall structure, but what we're really talking about here is wealth and freedom of those four things we talked about earlier. Wealth and freedom of time, wealth and freedom of money, wealth and freedom of relationships, and wealth and freedom of your purpose. If you're familiar at all with a book, so the popular book was called Infinite Games versus Finite Games, I believe. And I think that book was by... Finite and Infinite Games is the book I was originally introduced to and read, by James Carse. Now, this is an older book, but then Simon Sinek wrote a book called The Infinite Game that kind of modernized some of these principles. That there are different kinds of games, and the game that we're playing when we choose to go 10x is an infinite one, not a finite one. So I highly recommend you spend some time thinking about this. I actually am curious if anyone would be down or up for having a conversation around abundance versus scarcity with me on this podcast. So if you've gotten this far and that resonates with you at all, or if you want to talk about the difference between finite games and infinite games, I would definitely be open to a conversation. Maybe we can hit record and dive in there. You know, what's interesting is I get excited about this concept when I read about it because it feels right? Like I can feel it in my soul. It creates this freshness. It creates this perspective. It creates this momentum even that I can do good things, that I can create good things, and that quality and running a qualitative type of game and an infinite type of game invites me into wanting. That wanting is the opposite, literally, of needing, but that, wanting is intrinsically motivating me instead of extrinsically motivating me. That I don't need to make, $65,000 because I have bills. Like, that may be true, but that's not why I'm living my life. It's not why I'm making the choices that I'm making. No, I want to make a certain amount of money because it will allow me to create things, or I want to create things, and as a result, money comes to me and flows to me. There is a separation here that Dan has 4 distinct differences between needers and wanters. He says 1, needing is extrinsically motivated, wanting is intrinsically motivated. 2, needing is security driven, whereas wanting is freedom driven. 3, needing is scarcity minded, whereas wanting is abundance minded. And 4, I love this one, needing is reactive, whereas wanting is creative. Committing to what you most want is the only way to be free. In this chapter, they talk about 2 core types of freedom, and I really like this as well. It helps kind of frame the abundance and scarcity conversation, that the 2 types of freedom are freedom from and then freedom to. And that you're internally free when you are living a freedom to kind of life. Like, you're free to spend your time how you want. You're free to make your own choices. You're free to, wake up and create for yourself, right? Or create for your community, create for the world. Freedom from oftentimes is like, freedom from, let me think of an example. Freedom from a boss. Okay, so some people kind of run from it, right, instead of running to it. Not that there's anything wrong with it, but it's not as empowering to say, oh, I'm free from having someone else tell me what to do with my time. It's more like I have more power when I say I'm free to create with my time how I choose to. This is the chapter where Sullivan and Hardy introduce a concept that's very core to the 10X book. It is that you have a unique ability, that it is part of our job to find and to carve out our unique ability, that our unique ability requires we determine what we like and dislike doing, and it requires that we decide that other people's opinions are irrelevant. He says that, the basis of unique ability is to continually be conscious of the activities and the settings you like and that energize you and the ones that don't. So it's a very conscious approach to life. It's a very aware approach to life. But that as you go 10X and make the choice to go 10X, your unique ability is going to be required of you. And part of you living into your unique ability is knowing what that is and who you are and how you can develop your own unique ability over time so that you're spending more of your time on your unique ability and not just on an ability or on someone else's abilities. Other words for this unique ability could be things like mastery, right? A unique mastery or a unique gift, a unique purpose. What is it that you can do that if you when you spend more time developing it, it becomes your X factor, so to speak. It becomes your thing that makes you you. Because I'm committed to giving you really valuable content, remember, you can click pause anytime and jot down notes. I do have a workbook that goes along with this book that I put together. So if you pick up the book and would like the workbook, definitely comment below, let me know. But Sullivan and Hardy share 5 steps to developing your unique ability. And I would like to share them with you now. 1, you know what? I'm going to get a drink of water first. Y'all know I can talk. All right. The first step to developing your unique ability is to be increasingly honest with yourself and other people about what you most want for yourself in your life. Cool. Right? Like, get real. That's what I read, right? It's like, get real. Stop doing what everyone else is doing, Stop just coasting around and doing things just because they're in front of you or just because someone asked you to or told you to. Like, get real about what you want for your life. Be honest with yourself and the people around you. Number 2, to develop your unique ability, you must expand your vision and your thinking exponentially bigger than you've ever done before. You have to, in Sullivan's words, expand it bigger for yourself about what you can be, do, and have. So whatever you think, you need to expand that in order to find your unique ability. 10x, by the way. Number 3, to develop your unique ability is to clarify your ideal future self and what that future self would be doing, right? He says, get specific. What's the context? What's the mission that they're fulfilling? Your future self is fulfilling? What's the cause that you're about? What unique ability does your future self have that they are utilizing to dramatically impact and advance what they most care about? So look into the future, not just for what you want, but for what you will be doing in the future. Number 4, to develop your unique ability is to clarify the 20%. That if you develop that 20% and you get mastery in it, you'll experience your desired 10x jump. And then number 5, to develop your unique ability is let go of the 80%. These are the things that are not aligned with your curiosities and your interests and your mission, and everything else just has to go. So Sullivan does write that each time you go 10x, that going 10x isn't just a one-time affair in your life, hopefully, that it's something you can do multiple times in your life, but that each time you go 10x and transform yourself, you'll be clearer and clearer on your unique ability. So these things tie together in that way. So I hope you'll spend some time thinking about your unique ability. I hope you'll spend some time reading this chapter in the book, and really kind of centering yourself around wanting and around abundance and around creativity and around living in the infinite game. I know as I read it and revisit it, it is highly inspirational and something I really should be looking at every single day in terms of making sure I'm playing the long-term games, right, with myself and with those around me. All right, here we go into chapter 4, which opens up part 2. Now, part 2 is the 10x applications, all right? So it's more, I guess, tactical than the first part of the book. And I think I'll be able to cover these pretty quickly, and I encourage you to go spend time in the book if you're looking to sharpen your application of these things. But chapter 4 is called Uncover Your 10x Past to Clarify Your 10x Future. And this was I did all of the exercises and applications from the book as I was reading it. And this was a really powerful exercise. So this was about looking backward and connecting the dots, about being proud of where you've been and how you've done it, and to know and trust and believe that you will do it again, that you've had some really big wins in the past, and those are things that have led you to where you are today. So regardless of where you are today, whether you're feeling like you're at the height of a mountain or in a valley of some kind, it doesn't matter. That your ability to look backward, connect the dots, be proud of who you are, what you've done, what you've accomplished, that is a requirement in order for you to go into your 10x future. You have to see how you have already 10x'd in the past. So when did you 10x in the past? Was it when you left a certain job? I know his encouragement is to just kind of look at, big moments in your life, right? Like he goes through different questions to kind of spur this on. But, what are the big moments in your life where it seemed like those were milestones, right? And how did you 10x after that milestone or during that milestone? It doesn't mean that all your milestones were some kind of linear progress. It just means they were milestones, and that you as a character, you as a soul, you as a being became someone different. You became someone better. You chose to continue on and to allow yourself to see the future and the opportunities that are in the future, but to look backward and see the wins and the gains that you have already made progress around. So this very much is about looking backward and saying, yeah, I'm a winner. This and that. Like, I have already 10x'd. I've already transformed so many times in my life. I've already accomplished so much. That is a requirement for you to clarify how you're going to go into the future. The part of this exercise I just couldn't get enough of, and I was telling everyone about at the time, was that when you note those 10x jumps that you made from your past, to also take time to reflect on what was the core 20% that made those jumps. Where did you focus your energy and your attention as you were transforming in those moments? And just even clarifying what the 20% was in that particular stage will also help you see and refine your unique ability. All right, chapter 5 and I believe chapter 6 are very much to the point, in the sense that chapter 5 is called Take 150 plus free days per year. So he introduces a concept where you need to stop working so freaking much. All right. And I wholeheartedly believe in it. I believe that if you just take a deep breath and you really assess who you are as a person, what you've accomplished, the 10x moves you've made, the 10x moves you still have to make, that the way you use time matters more than anything else. And it's not about squeezing more out of each hour. It's about investing the right energy into each hour and into each day. So Sullivan's concept here is stop thinking that you actually have 365 days to hit your goals, right? You need to cut that in half and learn and plan to take 150 days off. That he even introduces a very specific structure around how to open up your schedule for these 150 days and what the days that you are working look like and should look like in order to 10x your life. And one concept I love that I was familiar with before this, but was just so happy that Sullivan took the time to put it in the book, is a concept called Kairos time. And if you're not familiar, time itself, there's like a Newtonian model of time that we use now, okay? And the Newtonian time is this abstract, fixed, linear time. That the past is behind us, the present is now, and the future is in front of us. That's Newtonian time. Newtonian time is absolute. It views time in absolutes. That it's the same for everyone. 24 hours in a day is 24 hours in a day. Now, there's a different person who is also well known, Albert Einstein, and he had a different theory of time. His theory of time, when studied, actually professionals and scientists and researchers would agree that his theory of time actually shatters Newtonian time. Like it's better. It makes way more sense to evolution and growth and development and all of these things. But the world, quote unquote, society, quote unquote, would maybe have you believe that Newtonian time, 24 hours in the day, is the same for you as it is for me. Einstein's relative theory of time says that time is subjective, that it's qualitative, that it's nonlinear, and that it's flexible. Put simply, time is not the same from one situation to another. No two people are having the same experience of time. 24 hours for me and 24 hours for you are not the same. Time expands, I'm reading straight from chapter 5 here, time expands or contracts based on the speed and distance an object moves through space in a given direction. The faster an object moves, the slower the time goes for that object relative to other objects. Time dilation is the term described for slowing down as an object increases in velocity through space. So basically, the faster you go, the slower time passes and the longer you live. So Kairos time is a qualitative Greek word. It's a Greek word. It's a qualitative approach to time. Kairos is a Greek word that means the right time, the opportune time, the moment, the alive time. Whereas Chronos time, like chronological, is more related to that Newtonian structure. It's sequential, it's chronological, it's linear. Chronos time is something that we get stuck in when we start putting a bunch of stuff on our calendar, like way far out, and we rearrange and reschedule because other things are needed and we have to prioritize and move things around, and we feel like our time isn't really ours. We just let the demands of what is being presented to us take our time. So, if this was easy, everyone would be doing it. But Einstein has a quote. He said, "People like us who believe in physics know that the distinction between past, present, and future is only a stubbornly persistent illusion. If you're in Kairos," this is Sullivan writing again, "you can tap into higher levels of being, connection, and inspiration. If you're in Chronos, time will pass you by. You'll be caught in paralysis by analysis or busyness, but not real movement." So practically speaking, Sullivan recommends 3 types of days in your world. One is a performance day, the second is a practice day, and the third is a rejuvenation day. He explains what those 3 are. So that pretty much wraps up chapter 5. And then chapter 6 is an interesting chapter. It's called Build a Self-Managing Company. If you're someone who leads others, then this chapter is applicable because it's inviting you to not just live this way for yourself, but to live this way as a transformational leader. To go from expecting little from your workforce or your team to expecting a lot from your team. But not because you're requiring that they live in Chronos or they live in Newtonian time, but that you're introducing them to these same concepts, that you are inviting everyone to 10x, that you're inviting everyone to level up their quality of work, that you're inviting everyone to expand exponentially, not just linearly, to grow and to have a vision for what 10x looks like, and to take the time to think and to be, right? And so that's what chapter 6 is about. Like I said, called Build a Self-Managing Company. It is about being able to be the leader who can take 150 days off and is still growing a business, because you then have others in your organization who are valuing the same things you value when it comes to growth and development and quality and 10xing, and that you have a few common, I believe they're psychographic alignment principles, okay? Psychographic alignment is a type of organizational alignment where everyone is on the same page, that everyone has a desire to achieve something similar, and even the process within which they achieve it is similar. So that psychographic alignment is the feeling of belonging to a group, right? And so he recommends, well, he doesn't recommend, he gives 7 principles on building psychographic alignment. And the first is having a story, a shared story as to why the organization exists and what we're doing here. 2, it's to have a shared ideology. That same thing with the story and how it started, but also like why, right? The mission, the purpose of the organization. 3 is to have some kind of shared symbol. You know, it's a strong sounding name. It's a symbol or a logo that people can associate with and feel. 4, it's shared rituals. This is the consistent, unique triggers that remind people why we're here and what's going on and why we're connected in this way. 5 is to have a shared enemy. He says it's often easier for people to bond on what they don't like than what they do. And so as a strategic coach, or at Strategic Coach, the company that Dan Sullivan runs, he says, you know, one of the enemies that they talk about with their coaching clients is actually retirement. That we're not looking to retire. We're looking to create. We're looking to have abundance. We're looking to live a life for the long haul that is good, you know, not one I have to retire from, so to speak. And then number 6, there's 7 total, but number 6 is shared language. So it's the insider language, it's the acronyms, the meanings, the unique words. And then number 7 is a shared leader. That every organization who's creating psychographic alignment has a really strong leader. That leader is seen as a servant, not just as a hero of any kind, but as a support and as a guide. So I thought that was a really cool way for him to end the book in terms of just, hey, yes, you can go live a 10x life, but also you should be looking at how you invite other people to live 10x and to create benefits and wealth and abundance for everyone in your life and in your community and in your organization. All right. Made it. That is the end of 10x is easier than 2x. Once again, these reviews are not meant as a replacement for the book. I just want to share with you some of my ahas from the book. And if any of that calls to you, then I highly recommend you pick it up. You can get the hardback book, you can get the Audible, but either way, if you do and when you do, and you'd like the workbook that goes along with it from B-Side, let me know and I'll get that over to you. Take care. Have a good one.